Hi, my name is Brooklyn, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how I completed 5 courses at Western Governors University online in just 5 weeks. This video is going to be broken down into 3 main categories. The first topic I'm going to talk about is what Western Governors University is, what program I'm in, and just how it runs. The second part is going to be all about my personal experience this first month, what classes I finished, how long it took me for each one, and which ones I found harder than the other. The third and final one is going to be some tips and tricks that I've compiled over my first month, as well as some I've learned from some other people about how to succeed and accelerate at Western Governors University. I'm attending WGU for my bachelor's in elementary education, wherein I will receive my bachelor's as well as become certified in my state. This program is about 120 credit units, but I was able to transfer in around 26, and then 23 of them I won't even do until I start my student teaching, because it's like evaluations and a portfolio and all that. Before student teaching, I only need to complete about 71 credit units, which seems like a huge amount, but you have to remember that each class either has 2, 3, or 4 credit units associated with it. So when you break it down, it's not that many classes. I have about 22 to 23 total classes that I need to complete. Now, WGU is different than other colleges in that the terms are what the semesters are. Instead of having a 3 or 4 month semester like normal colleges, you have a 6-month term. You can start at any time during the year as long as it's on the first of the month, and it goes for 6 months. Within that 6 months, you're required to complete 4 classes, but if you wanted to complete more, you are allowed to, and they don't charge you more tuition. For each class, you either have a PA or an OA. A PA is a performance assessment, so that would be like a paper or watching a video and responding to it or doing tables or graphs. OAs are pretty much a proctored assessment, so instead of doing a paper, you would go online, set up a time for you to take a test, which is usually multiple choice or true or false, or like a drop-down list. But after that, you'd set that up and someone would watch you through a camera, take your test, and it will be proctored. The performance assessments, since they are papers, they have to be evaluated, so they can take anywhere from like 2 to 5 days to actually be reviewed and given back to you. And if you mess something up, you had to just do it all over again and fix the part you messed up and resubmit it, wait the 3 or 4 days. It's kind of annoying. But the OAs, they are harder because it's no open note, no nothing. Someone's watching you can't cheat. We don't cheat. The one good thing about the OAs is that there's no way, as soon as you take your test, you will get your results within the next 24 hours. I've actually never even had to wait more than a minute and they've already popped up. But that's pretty much what WG is and how it runs. So now on to my experience. So when I entered WGU, I made the decision that I wanted to complete all of my courses outside of student teaching within my first 6-month term. Now this meant I had to complete about 23 classes in 6 months. So I set a goal for myself that I wanted to try to complete 1 a week, because it turned out to be a little less than 1 a week that I need to complete in order to do that, but I wanted to push myself. So my first day, I opened my courses and my program mentor told me what classes I was supposed to take first. I opened my first one and it was mathematics for elementary educators 2, because I had a credit transferred for the educators 1 and for the educators 3, but not for the middle one. So I opened that and looked at the material, and my mentor told me to go ahead and take a pre-assessment for that class just to see where I was at. And I took the pre-assessment and got exemplary on it, which is above passing. So pretty much be like an A+ or something. So they always say if you get that, you can study a little bit of what you need to learn, because it tells you on your report what you need to work at. I did that and I felt good about it, so I scheduled my exam for that night and passed my first class on my first day. My second class was Educational Foundations, and I started that on the 2nd, right after I had finished my math class on the 1st of the month. This class took me a little longer than math, obviously, because it had 2 papers that I had to write. One of them required an interview that I had to set up. But I read ahead and knew that this was going to happen, so before I even started my classes, I had scheduled an interview with a teacher in my community so that once I started this course, I could do it that day and start writing my paper. Once I had all my papers submitted, it did take me about 2, maybe 1 or 2 days to get them back, and I did have to revise something on one of them, so it took me a little day longer. So I ended up getting all those finished on June 5th, so that one only took me about 3 or 4 days. My third class was Survey of World History. I started this one on June 7th, so I had a 2-day gap because it was over the weekend and I wanted just, to have a rest because I'm working nonstop for 5 days. This class I was able to complete on June 11th, so about 4 days it took me on that one. This one actually had 4 papers that I had to write, and they were pretty easy though, pretty self-explanatory. So I went through my course material, looked at what I needed to, and reviewed it, and then wrote my 4 papers. And I think I had to revise one of those, but I was able to complete it in just a couple of days. My second class was health, wellness, and fitness, and something else. This one I started on the 11th of June, and I finished on the 12th. I wasn't sure how comfortable I would be with this class, but I took my pre-assessment for my exam, and I ended up getting competent, which meant I barely passed. So I spent the next 24 hours reviewing like crazy because I wanted to get this class out. I wanted to do 2 classes in a week, and I was able to take the test on the 12th and pass it. My 5th class I took is the first class that I was able to accelerate, which means it was more than my 4 classes, and it was the next one, and they actually had to go in and add it for me. That one was the worst. And it wasn't the worst because the content was hard. It was the worst because I had read so many things about this class from Facebook groups that people were like, oh, I was able to pass all my other classes in like a day or 2 apiece, and this one took me 8 weeks. And so I was really stressed out, and I had a vacation planned for a week. So I told my mentor in our meeting that week, I think it's gonna take me about 2 or 3 weeks to do this class. And she said, okay. So I opened it and was very stressed. And I actually took 3 or 4 days before I even submitted my paper. And this one not only had a paper, it also had an exam. So sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes they do a paper and an exam. This class was sadly one of them. I spent about a week before my trip and didn't really study that much because I was very stressed. And I did my trip, and on a Friday night I got home and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take the pre-assessment, see how I do, and I passed. So I was like, maybe I can take the exam. So the next day I went ahead and took the exam, and meanwhile in my mind I'm thinking I'm gonna have to retake this, I'm not gonna pass. I passed. So that class I was really stressed out about, but it was no problem once I actually got my head into it and was like, you know what, we're doing this. So that class I started on June 14th and I finished it on June 27th. So 1 day less than 2 weeks it took me for that class. So those are my 5 classes that I finished, and after psychology, I did start another one that I'm currently in and about to finish. I'm hopefully getting all my evaluations in for that today or tomorrow. But basically, I finished 5 classes in 5 weeks, and no, it wasn't what I wanted, 1 class a week. It was 2 here, 2 there, and then that last one that took me a really long time. But nonetheless, I did complete 5 classes in my 5 weeks, which was technically meeting my goal. So let's go into some tips and tricks that I have learned this past month that I think could really help you in accelerating at WGU. My first tip that I have for WGU is to set a goal. Now, my goal that I set was I wanted to complete all my classes other than student teaching before December 31st, which would be my 6-month term. Therefore, my sub goal was I'm completing at least 1 class a week. Now, I didn't make that one time, but because I had accelerated earlier and done 2 a week for a little bit, I was able to make up for that slacking. Second tip actually goes in with that last part of the first one, which is talk to your mentor. I was really scared about talking to someone about my classes because I was like, I don't want her to see I'm struggling, but they're really there to help you. If you have any questions about the program at all, or even the school in general, or you just need help because some things have gotten in the way in your personal life, they're always there for you. Also, if you're making any vacations, like I made my trip and had a week off, you need to tell them so that they know, oh, she's not been on her account for a while, I wonder if everything's okay. They need to be informed of that stuff so they don't have to be worried about your progress. My third tip for succeeding is actually that you need to get connected with some people who are at your college. Being that WGU is a totally online college, there's not much opportunity for communication and friends. But I did find out through some other people that go to WGU and have posted on YouTube, there are Facebook groups that you can join. I personally, right before I started the college, went onto my Facebook and searched WGU Teachers College, WGU Accelerating, and I found 2 really great groups that I've been able to post on and also just look through to get some information. These Facebook groups not only offer course help, because you can type in whatever course you have into like a little search bar, and it shows who was posted about that course, and people will give you their tips on it, how long it took them, what to expect for the course, and what things you need to do before you take the course. But they also offer great advice, great counseling, and they are so motivating. You can post something on there and it may be that you're struggling with something and you'll have about 50 people commenting, "You got this, you can do it, I was there too, but you got this." The support that you can receive through these Facebook groups will help motivate you to keep going and to achieve your goal. My fourth tip would be to work when and wherever. I personally work most weekdays, but where I work, I'm able to bring my laptop in, and whenever I have a time off or a break, I can get my laptop out and work on an assignment or study a little chapter. Find a schedule that works for you, or just do it whenever, but just make sure you're constantly working, because if you take a day off, you're gonna take another day off, and then another day off, and you're gonna be like me and have gone a whole week without working. My fifth tip would be to take your pre-assessment pretty early on in your course. For most of my courses that had an OA, I took my pre-test the day I opened it. Some of the other ones I waited a little while because I knew I didn't know that information. But especially on courses that you know the information already, you just need a little brush up, take the pre-assessment, they'll tell you what you need to work on, and then you're ready for your OA. My sixth tip is something that may not work for everyone, but it personally works for me, is to listen to something while you're studying. Now, I'm not saying watch a new show while you're working because you won't pay attention, but I have found that sometimes I get distracted by people that are around me. So if I put my headphones in and listen to either music or maybe a cartoon or like something small like that, I'm able to focus on my work. I put those things on because not only does it calm me, it also makes me realize that I'm in my little bubble and I can just focus and get stuff worked out. Now, this does not work for everyone. If you don't do good with distractions or with hearing things, you need complete quiet. You also need to pay attention to that. So just do that one if that works for you. My seventh one will be do not stress. I know that sounds, kind of, no, everyone says don't stress, but everyone still stresses. But I mean this like, whenever I was on my Facebook groups and I looked at my psychology class, everyone had me so stressed out. And because of that, I didn't want to touch it. You don't need to stress yourself out like that. You need to realize that your education is your education and your experience is going to be different than someone else's. So just because someone else says something is hard or you think you might not be good at it, you need to just go for it. Don't stress out about it and put yourself in your bubble. Go outside of your bubble and be like, oh yes, I can do this. That also applies to your evaluation times. I've had some evaluations come back the next day, and I'm currently on my 5th day of waiting for one of my evaluations. You always get inside your head, oh, did I do this wrong? Oh, what if I get it back and it needs revisions? It's been 5 days, I'm gonna be over my 1 week mark. You have to realize that that's gonna happen and that you can do it. My 8th is another one that everyone says, but I'm gonna reiterate it, and that is to plan. Plan times to study, plan times that you're gonna set aside to rest, and also plan your goals. Buying a planner, a notebook, or even just using the notes section in your phone can be a great way to make sure that you're staying on top of your planning. Number 9 has already been hit on a little bit, but that would be to research your class before you actually start it. So before I even went into the program, I looked on their website under my degree and was able to find all of my classes and what they were called. After I found out what my classes were, I was able to look up each individual one. Now, I didn't do all of them at once because that would be a little much, but I did my first term, looked them up by their course code on Google, Reddit, or my Facebook groups, and I was able to figure out how hard it would be, what I would need to do, and what resources I could use for that class. Researching your class before can give you vital information that will help you accelerate. One example is that I researched my educational foundations class early and knew that I was going to need an interview for that class. So I called someone up and was like, hey, can I interview you on this date? Because I knew that was when I was going to start my course. And I was able to get that interview out very fast, and that's how I was able to accelerate at that specific class. My 10th and final tip / trick would be to make yourself some kind of vision board or just visual display showing you your progress and your goals. I made one that I'll insert right now. On this, I have all of my courses that I need to take, the courses I'm currently taking, and then the courses that I've completed. They have little sticky tack on the back so I can move them from one category to the next, so that as I complete a class, I have a visual representation of, oh, I'm moving along. Oh, this is the progress I'm having. And that is a really big motivator for me. As you can tell, the theme of this video is really about motivation. As long as you can find things to motivate you and keep you going, you too can accelerate at WGU. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to my experience, and I hope that these tips and tricks have been helpful to you, and I wish you all the best of luck. Please leave a like and subscribe if you liked this video, and I will see you next time.